Hi there! Today I will talk about tools, and especially power tools that are useful for boat building. I wanted to address this as I got a request from one of you guys. The first power tool I will need for the mast build is a router. A router is useful when milling a track. For example, when making a channel for attaching the sail to the mast with a sail rope. I have used this cheap router before, but there is an electric error on it now, so it's on its way to recycling. Instead, I have bought this new router. Nothing fancy. It has a lock for how deep the tool will mill, and that's necessary to get an even track. A vacuum exhaust for the sawdust is also very handy, as a lot of sawdust is generated. A guide rail is also essential to have in order to get an even track. The next tool I will need is a circular saw. The circular saw is very useful to have to cut off the track after milling, but also to cut strips for the boat hull and for the mast, as in my coming project. I'm not totally happy with this saw. As a lock for the depth, this lock that locks the cutting depth of the saw isn't strong enough, so it can actually be loosened while sawing. Also, this side guide doesn't work well with distances thinner than 8 millimeters, because then it interacts with the protection for the blade. So in that case I have to sort of lift the blade before locking the guide in place. The saw also has this guide rail, but it is a bit short for my needs, especially if you want to cut strips. Sometimes I use it when I need higher precision and it's a short distance. Otherwise I try without it. A multi-tool, an oscillating multi-tool, is also very useful for cutting slots in the wood. This one has a lot of different tools. You can use it as a rasp, a bigger saw blade, another kind of rasp, another kind of rasp, another kind of rasp, a big saw blade, a smaller saw blade, and a really small saw blade. You can also use it as a sander, a small sander, corner sander, like this one. I'm quite happy with this tool and I can really recommend it. A planer is the next tool I will talk about. This one can plan off about 2 millimeters in one go. And it has an exhaust for the shavings that can go either left or right, with just shifting here. This rest is somewhat irritating, as it always gets in its way when you start the planning. And I never put the planner down to rest when in operation, so it's kind of useless, at least for me. What is important is that the planer leaves a smooth surface, and in that way it does its job. I might use this planer to shape the mast, but it's more likely that I will use the next tool instead. The sander is a boat builder's best friend. Without it, some operations would not be possible. If you want to level a whole hull, you're in for some serious exercise without a belt sander. This is a third belt sander of the same model, not because it's bad, but because I use it a lot and the cheap plastic gear wheel gives in eventually. I expect to use one belt sander for each boat project. This one has a speed regulator where you can change the speed, and it also has a locking mechanism so you can keep it running and you don't have to press any buttons all the time. Of course, it has a vacuum exhaust, which is quite important. It does its job and I'm quite happy with it. The last thing I want to address is more of a safety gear. The vacuum cleaner. Most dust from wood, epoxy, glass is very unhealthy to inhale. The vacuum cleaner keeps the air breathable if connected to the power tool when under operation. A face mask or respiratory aid improves the situation further. I often connect this vacuum cleaner to this pre-can, which separate out the coarse material using a filter. In this way I don't need to change the bags in the vacuum cleaner so often. If I had more room in my garage, I would also like to have a multi-tool station like this, which can do most things with one machine. In the next episode I will continue with the build of the mast. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you next time.